Everybody, Hodgetwins here.
Yeah, we got our good friend Joey Gilbert. He's running for governor out here in Nevada.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, we think he's the best candidate. He's America First candidate.
Yeah.
And we glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Man, it's been a fight. You know, I mean, for someone that's not a politician, I've never done this before. You know, I'm learning as fast as I can. And it's a dirty business, man. I mean, I'll tell you this, like, there are snakes everywhere in the grass.
Right.
You know, you think
on both sides,
both
right?
sides.
Yeah.
And to be completely honest, you know, there's some of the folks on our team that try to do people dirty. Because at the end of the day, like we've all talked about, this is all about power. It's about power and control, and they don't really care who's in charge as long as they maintain their power.
Right.
And if they got a yes guy or a puppet, then they're just as happy with that. And that's what's happening here in Vegas. They want Joe Lombardo in because he's bought and paid for. The casinos own him. You know, the special interests own him.
I pulled my son out of school.
And we know you're really big in education.
Yeah, and
my 1-2's out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like from my experience, like my son, he didn't feel safe. There was huge fights. Kids were bringing guns into schools. So I'm homeschooling them right now. And I learned that Las Vegas, the state of Nevada, is dead last in schools.
Dead last, actually, I think I said this before, or maybe it was before that, but a parent corrected me in Northern Nevada and said, Mr. Gilbert, we're actually 51st in the nation. I said, 51st, like, you know, I'm an English lit major.
Right.
Like, help me out with this. And she goes, Puerto Rico's grades are better than ours. And that to me was all you need to hear. And this is for a decade straight. So they're the most violent. Clark County School District needs to be broken up into 4 or 5 smaller districts. But more than anything, as I've said, I would take emergency control. I would use emergency powers like SISOLAK has used this last 2 years for a few months to straighten this out. Because honestly, the danger in the school, as you just said, the violence, the disrespect, the sexual assaults. If you knew what was really happening, if people really knew the real numbers, we've had 7,000 violent incidents that were reported to police this year since last August. I mean, since August. And now here we are. We're not even through the year yet. And if that's 7,000 reported, there's another half as many that didn't get reported.
Right.
So it's, you know, like I said, we're at an all-time. And I would honestly take emergency control because that would give us, like, you see what SISOLAK's been able to do to hurt the state.
Yeah.
Imagine we've had no deaths from children 0 through 19 from COVID. We've had the highest suicides per capita in the nation, the most violence, the poorest performing schools, and we have teachers leaving the profession in record numbers because they're just as scared as some of our children were about going to school. Parents don't want to drop their kids off. Teachers don't want to be there.
Right. It's almost like a war zone.
It's like a war zone. So that's where I'd say I would exercise true emergency powers to get in there to be able to suspend things like restorative justice.
Right.
You know, the other thing is 40% of the kids down here aren't even in school. Another 35 to 40% are under the influence of drugs or alcohol where they're at school. So how do you teach kids that, number one, aren't at school, and number two, are under the influence, and then the violence, like you said, we never seen this before. They said that, you know, Latino students and black students were being suspended more than anyone else. Well, I hate to say this, they were committing more of the crimes.
Yes.
That's the truth.
Whenever anybody throws in race, black and Latino, it doesn't matter what their skin color is. It matters what the offenses they're breaking.
Yeah, their
I
conduct.
could care less about their
Well,
skin
here's
color.
the worst part about it. Now it's 5 times worse.
Right.
So they got rid of the deans. They did this restorative justice, which what it does is, just so people are listening, I haven't made this stuff up. So restorative discipline says that you can commit violent assaults, sexual assaults, bring drugs, weapons, contraband on campus. Nothing happens to you. You don't get suspended. You don't get expelled. As soon as we start hooking kids up again, we don't need school police. We don't need it. We need the teachers to be able to have their authority so that when this happens, they call the police. The police come in, they arrest the student. They take him to a juvenile hall like we all used to happen.
Right.
They get charges pressed against them. And once this starts happening, kids will stop this. But until that happens, nothing's going to change.
As governor, how would you end this? Well, especially the thing that what happened in Uvalde, Texas. I mean,
oh yeah,
that was insane. Like, we used to live in Virginia. When I had to go pick up my kids there, you actually had to intercom system. You push the doorbell. They ask you what you're doing there. Oh, I'm here to pick up my daughter. She fell down, and they buzz you in. Even after they let you in, you have to pull out an ID. Even though your child might say, "Oh, that's my parent," they still wouldn't release you until you showed ID.
Yeah.
Here at Desert Oasis, where my kids went to school, you could just walk right into school at any time.
Yeah. Well, so those are some of the things we've talked about. Single point of entry. All this stuff is just so. I mean, I can't go to the courthouse without walking in. You can't go into the health club. You can't go. I mean, there's more security.
Can't walk into the White House.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to do more about that. But again, I don't want to get into this. We need armed guards and teachers that are trained because teachers have it hard enough. I do think that there should be one or two, whether they're veterans or former Leos that are there for without a doubt. And there's other people that argue with me about this, but I just believe in that because if it was my choice, there would be one at her school, and just like your son's school. So bottom line for me is we need to do that. But we would do this emergency control over the schools. We'd suspend this restorative justice. We'd make sure kids were showing up on time, shut up, sit down, do your work. And if not, then you're going to be out.
Yeah.
I mean, again, at the end of the day, these kids are learning nothing. When 75 to 95%, actually Clark County, it's 85% to 95% of 4th through 8th graders are functionally illiterate. 90% of high school seniors are graduating reading at an 8th grade reading level, if they're at that, and they don't qualify for the most basic community college level courses, let alone being able to do, any other regular school. The other thing is this, both UNLV and UNR, University of Nevada, Reno, have remedial programs for incoming freshmen. It's gotten that bad. We take emergency control of these schools. We suspend some of this nonsense. We make sure these kids are showing up. 40% of the schools in this nation do voluntary drug testing. Not compulsory, voluntary. Kids like structure. Kids thrive when they've got rules and they've got a regimen. When they have to have that.
Yeah, they thrive with no distractions. If there's distractions and troublemakers,
the phones away.
you can't.
My goddaughter goes to Bishop Manogue High School up in Reno, and they have to put their phones away unless they're on break. But you go look at these other schools, you walk in the classroom, there's a gaggle over here sitting on their phones. There's a group over here sleeping on the floor. There's a group over here talking. There might be a group up sitting with the teacher who's talking. That's all got to end.
Right.
And that's what I would do is immediately start holding administrators accountable for things, simple stuff, attendance, punctuality, respect. And again, credit recovery. What's credit recovery? It says you don't have to show up to school. You don't have to pass your tests. You don't have to participate in any way. At the end of the semester, you get 5 hours of extra credit and you pass with a C.
Wow.
Where would that happen in normal America?
Yeah.
Right, in real life. So these kids aren't being prepared for normal life. And then I'll say this, one of the requirements, a couple of things. Immediately exercise emergency powers over the schools, take control of them. And I'm not talking for 2.5 years like numbnuts here did. I'm talking 2 or 3 months while we get and again, we're going right into a session. So the legislatures mean, so if these guys are serious, teachers union can step up and say, you know what, less than 50% of the teachers are in the union now. But they don't want people to know that. Why is that important? Because these teachers can go and say, listen, either get behind us and support these reforms, get rid of this restorative justice, get rid of this credit recovery, get rid of allowing kids to be absent all the time, get rid of the drug use, or we're going to decertify these unions like Ron DeSantis did and threatened to do. And if they want to play that game, they'll have a governor that's going to back the teachers and say, we're not playing this. And we'll have a hotline in each county. Teachers that want to call in and report what's really going on aren't going to face the wrath of administrators who are saying, no, don't report that. And you have to pass these kids. Right. And let me tell you one other thing that's scary. So a teacher told me from down here that when she was getting ready to walk out the door, a student grabbed her at knife point, held a knife to her throat, and told her that he was going to get the grades he was going to get or else. And she said, I gave him to him. Because, it's just, she gave them to me. That's where we're at.
This thing that happened in Uvalde, that's like my worst nightmare.
Absolutely.
If you become governor of the state of Nevada, what can you do to prevent something like that happening?
Well, again, taking it back, first of all, by declaring this emergency over our schools, this is not stuff that's going to change overnight because we've got moral rot in these schools. This is something that's going to take a couple years, but I really think that we can improve these schools by 50% just by doing those 4 things I said, which is, again, exercise emergency control, immediately suspending some of these things, making kids show up, punctuality, being respectful, doing their work, no drugs, none of this restorative justice stuff. And again, the other stuff is what they're teaching them. So we need to get back to reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and the Constitution. Right. So teaching these kids and giving them actual skill set that's going to actually help them contribute to society. Another thing is I want to make 200 hours of paid work, employment a requirement for graduation because we're getting kids out that literally don't have to do anything.
Right.
But the last thing I'll say is this, we need vouchers. So what you just talked about, when enough parents say I've had it and because there's an education credit of, Nevada spends about $11,100 per student. And that's as much as some of the best private schools. But if the parents get to make the decisions and the money follows the student, and so we declare an emergency, We make vouchers available to parents, and these kids get started and pulled out. Here's the deal. Public schools have no incentive to improve. Unless they're forced to improve by taking away their money, they won't do anything. By doing that, and people say, oh, aren't you going to? No, we're not going to hurt them. There is so much money in these schools. We fund at the same rate as Florida, and Florida schools are number 3 in the nation. The same amount. Wow. So we need to start thinking outside and give parents the option of doing what's best for their child, because if that happens, then public schools are forced to compete for kids, then they start improving.
Yeah.
So declare emergency, make vouchers available, immediately suspend the nonsense that we know doesn't work, and then start enforcing the law, enforcing respect, make them put the phones away, do their work, drug test. Again, voluntarily, but you'll see how fast these athletes and other guys jump in this. Well, it's very simple. I have the grassroots support. I have the statewide support overwhelmingly.
You got our support.
I got your support. And I got a lot of people's support. But the more importantly is the state party, the people. Okay, when all 17 counties came and met together here in Las Vegas 3 weeks ago, they put every candidate to a vote. I'm the only candidate that got over the 50% threshold to be added to the endorsement ballot. And when they put Joe Lombardo to a vote, he got 31.5% of the vote. When I got put to a vote to be added to the ballot for endorsement, I got 71%. When I got put up for actual recommendation or endorsement, I got 67.8% of the vote. And so I have overwhelmingly, received the people's, support. And that's what matters most. I represent we the people. And for honestly, as I've said before, this is no longer about Republican or Democrat. This is about America. It's about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, God, family, country, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, doing what's right. And I represent those folks. And that's why we're seeing independents come across, common sense Democrats, nonpartisans, the health freedom movement, the mama bears, they're all coming. And the moms and dads, like you guys that are saying, we're sick of this. We're not putting up with this anymore. We don't care what he is. He's doing what's right. Well, look what he's already done. So Las Vegas is a war zone in crime. He can fight me all he wants. 500% increase in crime, over 110.
He's the sheriff right now, right?
He's the sheriff.
Yeah.
Right now he's the sheriff. And while he's been the sheriff since 2014, Vegas has tumbled backwards, the likes of which we've never seen. This man is currently allowing 10,000 child prostitutes. There's 10,000 children, under the age, under the age of maturity that are out on the street as prostitutes. There's 30,000 prostitutes on the streets of Las Vegas where prostitution is illegal. Right? And nothing's happening. And then you talk to the homeless, another disaster. Just recently, they're clearing out the homeless because Joe Lombardo's running for office. So we have got a moral rot down here. Someone needs to step up and say, this isn't okay. We need to sit down with the stakeholders, the big casino owners, and say, we need to make sure Las Vegas is an attraction without being the number 2 and number 5 per capita sex trafficking and child sex trafficking hub in the United States. This has all happened under his watch. And then let's not even get into Route 91. Okay, that shooting, I don't care what anyone says. I feel more emboldened than ever after the debates this week, after the response I got. People need to know that something happened. All right, the timelines don't add up. The witness statements don't add up. They made the cops sign NDA agreements. They erased these police officers' cell phone videos, everything. And we need to get to the bottom of that. You can't trust this guy. Well, let me just say this real quick. Joe Lombardo in 2016, he was elected sheriff in 2014. 2016, President Donald J. Trump's Department of Justice, Office of Inspector General, declared Clark County the worst sanctuary jurisdiction in the United States and found that there was 10 jurisdictions. We were one of 10 found in violation of federal law for not enforcing, federal immigration law, which meant turning over. And these are not I'm not talking about people that, broke a small minor law. We're talking about felonies, major felonies, not turning them over to the federal authorities and instead releasing them back to the community. And that's a direct correlation to the crime rate. So when on the debates the other night, he tried to say there's no nexus. I can show you the nexus right there. And again, I told everybody, go on Gilbert for governor. I put the report. I put the Inspector General's report. Go look at it. That's not me saying it. But here's one other thing. Joe Lombardo came out and said he is 100% against constitutional carry. He was the one, supporting,
that's against our rights to carry.
That's against our rights. Yeah. And again, the whole CCW is a racket. All right. Samuel Adams said it best. The Constitution should never be construed as to prevent peaceable citizens from bearing their own arms, period. You shouldn't need a document, a piece of paper. You want to carry a gun, you carry. Now, I'm all for making sure people get training and everything. But at the end of the day, There, he was against capacity magazines. He was pro red flag law. He was for the Bloomberg background checks, all this stuff. And he was the only sheriff out of 17 sheriffs to support Steve SISOLAK for governor against former Attorney General Adam Laxalt, who is a Republican. So you tell me something about that. He also sat on Steve SISOLAK's transition committee and advised him on sanctuary city law. Right. So again, I can read Harvard School of Public Health, John Hopkins, 27 times the durable immunity if you had it and survived it naturally. That's it.
I still got, we caught COVID about 20 months ago when I go get blood.
Still had the antibodies, don't you?
Still had the antibodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think an interesting point you brought up about these sanctuary cities. So you mean to tell me if you arrest a illegal immigrant committing a felony, he's released back into the...
Released back.
Where's ICE at?
He has lied. He didn't turn him. They removed ICE. They kicked ICE out of Metro. He doesn't want to talk about this. He got so mad the other night he was shaking, saying that's not true. The Inspector General's report is right there, and that was Trump, the same guy that endorsed him. So you can't lie with those numbers. Listen, let's dial this back to no one here is against lawful legal immigration.
Right.
And no one's against any Latinos. Like I said, the biggest supporters I have in this race right now are Latinos.
Yeah.
Okay, 100%. And again, because they're the first ones that come up to me and say, hey, you need to do something about the border. I said, I'm in Nevada, bro. Like, it's not all that week. But then they asked during the debate, would you deploy troops down there? It absolutely would help Arizona and Texas. And if we could have a little talk with Newsom, maybe bring him over, make a little offer he can't refuse about doing something down there, we would do it. But again, at the end of the day, we've got to enforce the law.
Right. That's the biggest problem we have in America.
And here's the other thing people don't know. So Nevada now has the highest per capita in the nation of legal immigrants, 223,000, and we know that number is much higher. All because that didn't happen by mistake. Right. So when Lombardo says, that's not me, yeah, buddy, that's you. Here's a man that supported all SISOLAK's mandates, enforced his own mandate, his own vaccine mandate on new recruits. So how dare him sit here and talk about protecting our rights when he wouldn't do it as sheriff? Right. So people don't trust Joe Lombardo with their gun rights.
What I don't understand, we called them all heroes before we had a vaccine. Then all of a sudden you were firing them. Yeah. I was like, that is weird.
And then I've said
it's all about
people,
power.
When people say, oh, Joey Gilbert's radical. He's too...
How can you be radical?
That's what I say. I say, you want to know what's radical? Yeah. Radical is forcing kids into mass, shutting their schools, taking them out of their sports, tying doctors' hands, telling people they have to get this or they're going to get fired, forcing our military to get this stuff or our police officers. Yeah. So that's radical to me. I think, middle of the road is saying, hey, freedom of choice. Yeah. If you want to get it, go. And I don't recommend it. But if you want to get it, we're going to make it available for you. But we're also going to make sure all those early treatment medications are available down at the county. And if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But no one should be forced because the word mandate is nowhere in the Constitution. I am a constitutionalist. I'm the only one that's actually done a damn thing this entire time to fight for the people. Right. So there should be no doubt. It's very simple.
Well, you got us behind you. Yeah. And I don't care if Trump didn't endorse you.
No, I think in this state, it's a kind of a kiss of death in the sense that people don't like to have anybody put their finger on the scale. They don't want to be, coached or coaxed or anything. And when you said, what are the most important things in this state? So schools, and again, these are 80% numbers, 80%. Schools, and it starts actually economy and no mandates, schools and crime. And then depending where you're at in the state, it's election integrity, Second Amendment, water, stuff like that. Very, very simple stuff. So when you drill it down, and I've got 80% consensus on what people want. They want to make sure our economy can never be shut down again. Right. And what does a real leader do? He returns power to the people as quickly as possible. Not after 799 days of 15 days to slow the spread. So we go in there and we restrain any future governor from ever being able to do this again, number one. Number two, we make sure that, how do you make the economy better? You make it a business-friendly economy. So we've got to work to remove the commerce tax. We got to make Nevada, tax-friendly. We got to make it, obviously, regulation-friendly. There's way too many regulations where nurses, doctors, anybody that wants to come here has to go through this red tape that takes months, if not almost a year, where they can be licensed in even places like California in a few weeks. So we've got to get rid of the red tape. We got to, remove taxes, agree to do no more taxes. But when companies are thinking about coming here, so people always say, everyone talks about this everywhere you go. we need to diversify. We need to move away from just casinos and mining or the hospitality sector, which is kind of switched over and they're going more towards Asia, But the bottom line is this. Everyone could say we need to diversify. How do we diversify? We can bring in advanced manufacturing. We can bring in biotech. We can bring in doing renewables and recycling. But you got to have the business-friendly environment. And when you're already taxing people on manufacturer equipment, before they even get open, when you have a commerce tax that taxes you whether or not you've made money. And then the other thing is, what are the three things businesses look at when they're going to move to a state? Education, taxes, and crime. Yeah. Where we're the worst in all those cases. So we're second in unemployment. We're the highest in inflation. We have the worst schools in the nation and territories. And we have the worst election integrity. On top of other stuff, like I said, the inflation and stuff. How do we fix it? Just get out of private business's way. Let them do what they need to do. Don't ever close a business down again. And we would do it like Kristi Noem did. South Dakota never shut a day. Yeah. Never shut a day. So I've got common sense stuff. And then on the police, this is very simple. Let the law enforcement do their jobs. Take the handcuffs off our police. Let them enforce the law. But more importantly, we got to remove some of these political judges and DAs that are tying police's hands, that are letting, there's people getting out. They're committing a second crime before they even been to court. I mean, like in the same 24-hour period. They were never charged. They got out no bail. So we have to work on those things. But again, it's the moral rot. Lombardo's done a horrible job as sheriff, and we got to make sure that this guy can't keep going. And again, like I said, start with just prostitution. Start with what's happening here, regular offenses. Then nothing happens to these guys. Schools, economy, and crime. And then I already said Second Amendment, and then water. Look at Lake Mead. They're literally joking about bodies popping out up there because it's dropped the lowest it's ever been. Well, how about we stop letting California take 7 times their allotment from the Colorado River? And we got to talk about things like, we're doing some good conservation down here, but we can put, better, more efficient irrigation techniques up in northern Nevada. But we can also do things like cloud seeding. And for the people that, some people said, oh, that's spraying the sky. No, there is cloud seeding technology that can work and fill up our reservoirs in 2 to 3 months instead of trying to wait 2 to 3 years. And this is all stuff, that we could do, that they're doing, the military has been doing for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, that we should be doing here in Nevada. And the last thing I'll say is power. So there's called small modular nuclear reactors that put out, a very clean energy. And what does it use? It uses the expensed nuclear fuel. And the stuff that they want to store in Yucca Mountain, we can use as fuel. And then it puts out something that's not even, at the same level as radioactivity. It goes in ceramic tile. And we bring in the subject matter experts to know this stuff. But I've looked at it. They're about to bring one online in Utah. We could power the western part of the United States for 1,000 years, the entire United States for 300 years. You want to know the number one people putting this down? The oil, the big lobbyists that put more of a effort towards killing these projects than letting it. It's stuff, but we got to think outside the box, and that's I'm not a politician. I'm a dad. I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an attorney. I know how to work within these regulatory confines, especially after what this governor did. He used NRS 414, this ridiculous emergency powers for 2.5 years. I would use them for a couple months to fix the schools, but I also know how to navigate to make things easier for Nevadans, get them some relief. People talk about suspending the gas tax. Government can't do that. Governor can't do that. But we've got to have these idiots in D.C. stop printing money like it's growing on a tree, right. And then we could do things like tax credits for developers to build, more affordable housing. But people that are talking about, things that a governor can't do, I don't waste my time on that. I just try to talk about what a governor can do within the confines of the law and working with people and putting a vote to the people. Yeah. Let the people be in control. As I said earlier, I'm 100% pro-life. I would love to see no murdering of babies, no abortions, but it's state law that we're pro-choice. But we need to work with faith-based leaders, with parents, with kids to teach the value of human life and protect the sanctity of human life by again, it's going to be an education process that's going to take some years. Yeah. We've got to turn this around.
Yeah, they make it seem like it's healthcare and birth control, which it's not.
And people didn't learn that overnight. They was taught that. They was fed that.
It's been like I said, the moral rot that's happening in our crime and our, in our schools and even in the economy, where they put the attention. And I said this the other night, this state has enough money to do everything we're talking about, to make sure these children are safe, to make sure they're being taught the right things. If you saw the waste in the administrative offices in Clark County School District, I tell this people all the time, You could go through and go duck, duck, goose, get rid of a third of them. No one even notice it. And then we could put these, if these people really want to stay and work with kids, they can go in the classroom on a teacher's salary. Oh, by the way, I just solved your teacher shortage, real quick. But then we could afford to pay some teachers some more because teachers need to be paid better, and so do law enforcement. Yeah. But these guys, we got NHP troopers, Nevada Highway Patrol. They're taking home less than $2,000 a month. New recruits out of the academy. How do you pay? How do you support a family? And then on top of it, you're laying your life on the line every day to make arrests of people that are getting out within 24 hours and going right back and doing it again. We're going to lose all our police and we're going to lose all our teachers. And that's stuff like Policeman's Bill of Rights. These guys shouldn't be held personally liable for what they're doing on the job. We got to bring that back. And you know who didn't stand up for his own police department? Joe Lombardo. Didn't stand up at the legislature. And the Democrats and Steve SISOLAK defunded the school police by $30 million in 2019. We have 146 officers.
That's suicide.
That's suicide. So when you guys talk about your kids, we have 146 officers for 54,000 employees for 320,000 students at 366 campuses. How do you do that? So again, think about that when I say they say one thing, but then they go in there and do that. And so I'm the wrong guy to mess with because I'm a numbers guy and I use it in business. And so again, if we want to get down and have a conversation, they're going to lose on the facts. Yeah. But we're going to win this because, again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Mm-hmm. They're not entitled to their own facts. And the facts of the matter is Nevada's dangerous for our children. Mm-hmm. The economy's in disarray because of our inept governor shutting it down. Mm-hmm. But it's worse because we thrive on tourism. So when you have one of the worst, crime cities in the nation, we're losing tourist dollars. So again, Lombardo's the worst, answer you could possibly throw at fixing Nevada. You know what? I'm on, Facebook, just Joey Gilbert. I'm on Gilbert for Governor on Facebook. And then you can go to, just Gilbert for Governor, .com is my website. And I'd ask anybody, please jump in. People have now realized this, where you live in America, who your governor is in America now has mattered now before, like it's never mattered before. Yeah. You see people, they can't even, seen the housing rates in Florida, in South Dakota, in Texas. So this matters now. So go on Gilbert for Governor because we've got people from other states that are saying we want to make sure these states stay red. Mm-hmm. Especially people in California. They say California's lost. Yeah, we got to save Nevada. So I know you guys have an amazing following. So I just encourage anybody, go on Gilbert for Governor, jump in, get in the fight with me, and help me win this election and register Republican. Yeah. Aaron Lewis said it the other night on one of his shows down in Laughlin. He said, he leans forward, he goes, so hey, my independent friends out here, pick a side. It's time now. You're either with America and on Team Freedom and Team Life, Liberty, and whatever in pursuit of happiness, or you're over here with these radical nut jobs that want to take away your liberty.
Nut jobs is putting it kindly. These people are batshit crazy, man.
Batshit crazy.
Hey, Joey, give us a good Hodgetwins yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Joey. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, no problem.